about state sovereignty and whether there was anything, I guess, legislatively related to nullification, which some states are doing.
Well, Texas was passed a law covering the 10th Amendment and rejecting any overreach by the federal government. I'd like to see that went forward. Federal lateness left my house, I want to get you there. You can't do this, you overstep the grounds.
Well, I can tell you what we have done. And I think there probably will be some legislation related to those issues. The bill I mentioned was specifically because there's no means right now for the General Assembly to say to our federal representatives, these are the problems, and this is officially what we think we need to do about it. If nothing else, it puts a line in the sand, if you will, from the state standpoint about the concerns that we hear from our constituents and what the federal government is or isn't doing. The healthcare reform legislation that was put in place at the federal level, Virginia, obviously the General Assembly took the lead in saying that's an overstep of your authority and we're not going to put it in place in Virginia. So I think we have tried to do that related to specific laws and the like. So I think we will see that. We have done that. I think you'll see us continue to do that. It's very difficult from a constitutional standpoint the way the courts have structured things and what we can and can't do. And that's what we're trying to figure out. And I think to a certain extent, and I said this a couple of years ago, that we're going to have to do more legislation like we did with the healthcare reform and have a challenge to court. Just if it's overturned, at least the General Assembly has taken a position and saying we're not going to abide by, we don't believe our citizens have to abide by these federal statutes or laws that you put in place. And I think again, we'll continue to see that. And all of us have supported this.
Does the State Attorney General have the authority to say that it's not constitutional, that we cannot do this to our citizens?
He expresses opinions, and those opinions don't carry the weight of law, but because attorneys general change every 4 years. But those opinions do carry weight, and judges respect them quite a bit. One of the most egregious infringements on our constitutional rights was passed by Congress recently, the National Defense Authorization Act. The NDAA had a provision in there a year ago that allowed for indefinite detention without respect for Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures. What you had in Virginia as a reaction was a legislative initiative by Delegate Marshall, which essentially said, we're not going to participate in enforcing this law. Congress can claim the right to be able to do that, but we recognize under the Constitution that our citizens have Fourth Amendment rights. Those can't be infringed by federal authorities coming in and detaining you. Well, we've passed a law that says that we will not cooperate with federal authorities. I think we should take a step further and say that we aren't cooperating now thanks to that law, but we want information from the federal government about what they're doing in our Commonwealth. Are they acting under this authority? Because we have instances of individuals being detained and without a warrant.
All they have to say is I'm a terrorist. I don't even get to see the judge.
Well, you had a young man named Brandon Rao who was detained for Facebook postings that amounted to little more than quoting rock music verses. So you had concerns there raised about Fourth Amendment protections. I want to know what our federal government is doing in the Commonwealth, so I'm drafting legislation that would direct our government to request that information from the feds and then take action if that's not provided. We need to know. We need more sunshine into the activities of our federal government within the boundaries of the Commonwealth. So I think that's the appropriate next step to that
needs to be referred to that. And
I don't know if nullification is the best idea. But I would think that we have a long, hard road to travel to get the place. I think our biggest concern, as far as the federal government is concerned, is we allow them to reach into their lives because we take every federal dollar they pay to us. Every one of those dollars comes with strings attached. We ignore that while we continue to take the money and they gain control of the things that we should be doing ourselves as a sovereign state. Until and unless we stop that, that's going to mean that we stop some of our own recklessness. And until we do that, we're in a real quandary as to what we do.
Sir, in the back.
I came in here to bring one thing up, and I've heard so many things in here tonight that, you know, a lot of things run through my head. What the gentleman said up here, first of all, my name is Jim Wood. I got out of the military in 2008, and now I do primarily security consulting, logistics, do government as well as businesses. And when he was talking about security in schools, I have my 10-year-old here with me. You know, that's very important in our house. You know, he comes back from school and he tells me all the kids in his classroom throughout the school, this was the topic of conversation, you know, for a couple of days after all the news media blast, what happened in Connecticut. Now, me as my profession now, you know, there's certain things that I see that can be changed before funding is brought forward for a new school to be built. There needs to be, you know, some architectural changes made, entry control points. And I don't mean to use a lot of military jargon to make it sound like a pile of sandbags out in front of the school, but there are, you know, electronic locking devices or stuff that can separate the administrative part of the building from the classrooms that need to be put in place before funding is put forth for a new school. As far as putting more resource officers, I had worked with Congressman Goodlatte on trying to get the rules changed for air marshals to include not just police officers, but recently separated military and retired military. I have a friend who has a security company in London who hires nothing but military. His quote to me was, "You guys kick in 50 doors a day, where a police officer may only kick in 2 doors in a career." So a lot of our returning military have the experience, and a lot of them we have right now are reservists and active guard in this state who's already on the payroll that could be used as those resource officers. You're not adding more money to the budget. You're just using the resources you already have. So that's something I would hope that you guys would kind of look into to kind of help our veterans and help our guys who have that experience. I know a whole handful of guys that after I came home from Baghdad in 2008, they had been just doing just that, and now they're cooking in kitchens where they could be using in restaurants where they could be using what we, our tax dollars have paid for to, train them and to see what these guys can do in action. I have complete faith in what they can do in protecting my kid at Westwood Hills Elementary School. So that just kind of was a sub of what, before I even came in here, and there's something I just added on. My primary thing was I teach firearms classes, Virginia concealed carry permits. That's another thing that I do. And I do that because I enjoy it. I don't necessarily do it for the money. I enjoy, my personality and my experience. I teach for Dominion Outdoors, Knuckles. I'm a new instructor for Augusta County through the Parks and Rec for the entire county now. And I have a real problem with the fact that the state of Virginia allows a $25 online course that will give you the requirements to get your concealed carry permit. Right now, the state of Virginia is losing reciprocity with other states. Delaware just dropped us because of that online class. My partner, who I teach with, is a retired SWAT commander from Richmond Police Department. And he's a big fisherman, and he was fishing with a buddy who was bragging to him how his wife was at home taking his concealed carry permit class online while he was off fishing. And if he's doing it, there's a lot more doing it. I think we need to do away with the concealed carry online class. And I'm not saying that because, you know, I make money at doing that. You know, I enjoy teaching, and I would do it, actually I do it for free a lot of times. But how I do it, when you, and Mr. Bell, actually your wife took my class a month ago, yeah. You know, I started an email list that when I go to the range, anybody who took my class, you know, as soon as it starts getting warm, I'm going to start sending out emails. You come to the range, and I don't charge people for that. So I'm not saying that because it affects me as a businessman. I think it affects all of us, especially with the microscope that we seem to be under after this Connecticut shooting. That needs to be done away with.
We appreciate that. We've heard a few comments related to that, so we're going to look into it a little bit closer.
I hope so. I hope so. I just want you to know that people like you guys, I appreciate what you all do for the state. That's the reason why I moved into Waynesboro and moved to this part of the state. I'm from southwestern Virginia. It's a little too off the beaten path for me these days. So Waynesboro is why I moved, because of the political mindset and because of the sense of community. And I appreciate what you guys do. Matter of fact, after the last election, I was a little discouraged. I don't fly, and it's hard for me to say, being a 24-year veteran, you know, I don't fly a United States flag in my yard. I fly a Virginia flag in my yard. So we put a lot of faith in you, and we appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.